1330 WXNT.
Sequestered this money as a debt payment fund. If you got back to a balanced budget, you could, just from oil royalties and gas royalties, pay off the national debt. It would be that big a difference.
It's amazing, Mr. Speaker, and it's all of the things that you've laid out really aren't that hard to do. You approve the Keystone Pipeline, you approve drilling and exploration, you get permitting back on an accelerated basis. It's really not that hard, and yet this president has stonewalled it at every turn.
Well, we have to recognize Obama is anti-American energy. Obama appointed a Secretary of Energy who's a nuclear physicist whose background was at Livermore Laboratories, who said publicly in 2008 he wanted to see American gasoline prices get to the level of Europe, which is $9 or $10 a gallon. Obama himself said that he believed gasoline prices had to go higher. He just didn't want the shock to be too great. The fact is, gasoline prices don't have to go higher because we've proven in North Dakota that peak oil does not exist. We have generated in North Dakota, which is on private land, so Obama couldn't stop it. They have generated now evidence that they have 25 times as much oil as the U.S. government thought there was there. Then not 25% more, 2,500% more. And I think it's just further proof that every time you turn around, new technology, new entrepreneurship, in shale gas, for example, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, we're discovering an enormous amount of natural gas. We used to think we had 7 to 10 years supply. We now think we have over 125 years supply. All that's new technology of the last 10 years. So I think we are frankly disproving, as a matter of fact, the liberals' belief that we're going to run out of oil. There's no reason it has to be high priced. And I think for the economic health of the American family, for their pocketbook, for their jobs, for what they pay at the grocery store, less expensive energy is better for a higher standard of living.
Amen. We're talking to former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. His presidential campaign website is newt.org. Please go there and support him however you can. Mr. Speaker, let me ask you about another issue that blew up this week, a world away in Afghanistan. Some of our military forces burned some Qurans and extremist Islamic literature along with it, which then set off violent protests there, and it's resulted in the deaths of 2 U.S. soldiers so far, and we've seen a number of other deaths with regard to these protests. The president apologized for the burnings. He apologized directly to the Afghan president, Hamid Karzai. Was that appropriate? And the bigger question I want to ask you is, how should we be fighting this war, which is not just a geographic war in Afghanistan, Iraq, and elsewhere, but it's an ideological one?
Well, I frankly am tired of the one-sided hypocrisy in which various radical Islamist groups can make the most outrageous claims. And we are supposed to apologize to them, but if they burn, for example, in Malaya, Christian churches, or if they burn in Nigeria, Christian churches, or if they burn in Egypt, Christian churches, somehow President Obama never quite gets around to protesting. I think we should recognize that there is a worldwide movement of extremists who are radical Islamists who are determined to, in fact, defeat our civilization and to impose a particular world on us. In Egypt now you have the Muslim Brotherhood saying they want Egypt to become an Islamic country. That is a huge change from what they publicly said they wanted. And I think it's all going to continue to move in that direction. I think President Obama has no idea how dangerous these people are, and I think his continuous effort to appease them is useless. There are no grounds for killing American soldiers over the burning of something. I mean, imagine if every time a Bible was burned somewhere by a Muslim, you had riots by Christians who sought out people from that country. We would all be shocked and appalled. We'd say that's wrong. And I think it frankly makes me begin to question the whole effort in Afghanistan if we have to put up with this kind of religious intolerance and religious hatred. And I think that Karzai owes us an apology for the death of 2 young Americans who, after all, were there to help prop up his government.
Yes, let's not hold our breath on that, Mr. Speaker, because that may be a while before we get that kind of apology. I have to commend you because you are out there pretty much alone when you talk about the assault on religious liberty, but also when you talk about how Christians here and around the world are constantly being assaulted and are under the gun in so many different ways. You mentioned the Coptic Christians in Egypt and elsewhere. You also have the Israelis now facing an ever more existential threat with regard to the Iranian nuclear program. You've got the Muslim Brotherhood on their border now threatening to abrogate the Camp David Accords. You are out there talking about our allies. You're talking about Christians under assault. Nobody else has really taken up this banner, and I want to commend you on that because it's something that we really need to give voice to.
Well, we need to understand this could become a matter of life and death. You know, running for president is not the same as running for, student body president. The President of the United States' number one job is to be commander-in-chief, to protect the people of the United States and to protect the Constitution. And this is not a game. And I think that we are faced with enormous threats. I think we could literally lose an American city to a nuclear weapon in our lifetime. And I think that's something that means we should be strengthening our defense and our intelligence, not weakening them. And I think Barack Obama is the worst danger as a national security president that we have had in my lifetime.
You said that, Mr. Speaker, earlier this week, and I was out there cheering you on Fox and elsewhere because you're so on point about that. And it's, the left-wing media pounded you for it because, it's politically incorrect thing to say. But as a historian, you know better than anybody that when the United States is perceived as weak, when the commander-in-chief of the United States is perceived as weak, apologizing all over the place, gutting our military, the wheels come off the world. And the bad guys advance, and our allies feel like they're on their own. And you know what? You end up with a much more violent and bigger conflagration than you would have had if you had been responsible and powerful in exerting American influence to begin with.
That's exactly right. It was George Washington who first warned us that you must get peace through strength, not peace through weakness. So weakness begets war, and that we are faced with a dangerous world. And I think President Obama doesn't understand any of that. I think he represents a very radical, unilateral disarmament approach of appeasing our enemies and undermining our friends. And I think it's very, very dangerous for the future of the country.
Thank you, Newt. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, of course, Republican presidential candidate. His campaign website is newt.org. I'm Monica Crowley, back right after this.